Speak of the devil, and she shall appear. A jealous wife bays for blood.
Am I gonna prove no one will?
If I can't have them, nobody will.
Rejection turns a mistress into a monster.
On the scale of hideous and grotesque murders, this is at the top.
And an unhappy couple
Will you stop that?
drive each other to the brink.
People do some very vile things.
These deadly women don't pull punches. They commit unspeakable acts. "43-year-old Delpha Jo Spinagle loves having a man about the house. And she's had a few. 39-year-old Dennis is her fourth husband.
My He-Man.
I never said I was Mr. Fix-It.
She couldn't live with them, couldn't live without them. She always had to have a male companion, but she couldn't stay with one very long. That problems develop quickly.
Oh, honey, I know someone that can do this.
Oh, good.
She'd met Dennis in the late 1980s, and he had a small business, a silkscreen business.
Should we go for a drink then?
It's not even 5 o'clock.
Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
My bad, boy.
Dennis Spinagle didn't have much, but he was a hard-working guy, taking care of himself. But Delpha had nothing. So to her, Dennis looked like quite the catch.
But Delpha has a wandering eye.
Can you pass me my saw?
And after 6 years of marriage, she invites another man into their home,
Thanks.
David Woodward.
He was a handyman, and she had known him prior to the marriage.
David is young and handsome.
He's 13, 14 years younger than Dennis, younger than Delpha, and he starts working for Dennis.
Soon he is more than just the hired help.
Perfect.
Well, make yourself useful and pass me my toolbox.
Both her and her husband had kind of struck up a friendship with him.
It's looking good. How long do you think it's gonna take?
Reckon about 3 days.
Great. I'll see you both later then.
Oh, honey. He lives so far away. Could he maybe stay in the motorhome?
Sure. He seems like a nice guy.
Dennis and Delpha, they grew quite fond of David, and they trusted him enough to allow him into their home.
Delpha wanted David around, and Dennis would do whatever Delpha wanted.
Are you sure you'll be comfortable here?
Sure will.
Delpha was definitely attracted to him. David, of course, wasn't too attracted to her, wanted to be friends.
So glad you're here. Won't feel so alone.
What are you talking about? What about Dennis?
What about Dennis?
Delpha soon has her new tenant's ear.
He abuses me, he pushes me. Emotionally, I'm just a wreck from all of it. He drinks all the time.
I raise you.
David sees the problem firsthand.
I'm out. What?
Delpha claims that Dennis would like to get his drunk on.
What's up?
I think you've had enough.
Don't start, Delpha. A man can relax and have a drink in his own home.
Hey, are we playing or what? I'm in.
Well, I'm going to gents. Unless that's not okay with you.
And though he would never really hit her, he would push and shove her all the time and verbally abuse her.
And there's something else.
he had had an affair, and she wasn't happy with that. She was a jealous person. Delpha wanted to be in control and be in possession.
And it just had to what? Had to just stir up all of that anger inside of her. She wants to attack.
Delpha might not have been happy with Dennis, but she didn't want another woman to have him.
Delpha confronted, told her. She said, listen, if I can't have him, nobody will. Watch it.
You're a homewrecker! Stay away from my husband! Homewrecker!
That tells me that there's a lot of pent-up anger, maybe a volcanic rage inside of her just waiting to come out.
If I can't abuse, no one will! Hear me?
Delpha's frightened of losing her man. Not because she loves him, but because he's paying all the bills. There is another option to secure her financial future.
Delpha wanted one thing from Dennis, his life insurance payoff.
There was a $150,000 life insurance policy on Dennis's life. She was going to obtain that $150,000 because of his death.
Delpha wants someone else to do her dirty work. She goes looking for a hitman.
I want it done soon.
Understand. Give me the cash, I'll do the job.
She tried to hire, at least on 2 different occasions, a hitman to kill her husband.
Listen, there's a lot of money at stake here. There's gonna be more in this for you than you could ever imagine. So help me get it done. We'll be rich.
But Dennis is trying to make amends. He promises to change his ways.
Delpha, you gotta believe me.
Dennis ended the affair. He did what he was told.
Please, Delpha. I know what I did was stupid.
How can I ever trust you?
I'll make it up to you, I promise. I'll do whatever you want. I love you, Delpha. I love you.
That wasn't enough for Delpha.
It's too late. Delpha's wheels are in motion.
It's what's inside people that's hard to see.
In the suburbs of Oklahoma City, Delpha Jo Spinagle thinks her husband will soon be dead.
Don't contact me again.
Whoa, man.
She's paid a hitman, but she's been double-crossed.
Delpha now realizes I have to take this on my own. I have to do it myself. If he won't help, I'll find somebody and I'll get this done. But Dennis, he's gonna die.
On August 14th, 1993, it's time to call in a favor. She turns to her resident handyman, David Woodward.
Come on. Get up, it's time. It's time, get up.
What's important to Delpha in all of this is that she is driving the bus. She's calling the shots, literally.
Come on.
David becomes part of Delpha Jo's nightmare.
Delpha wanted Dennis dead, but she didn't want to do it herself.
Do it.
David would do anything for her, and she knew that.
Do it.
We have no idea why.
So David has a baseball bat, and he hauls back and takes a whack.
Hit him again. Get him.
Dennis would have had an incredible rush of adrenaline, fury, anger, and pain when he was initially beat.
Hit him again! Hit him again! Hit him! Get him!
One guy against the other guy, but one of them has a bat.
Delpha, please!
Hit him again!
Delpha, standing back, loving it all. She's part of this violence.
David begged Dennis to please die because his arms were getting sore.
So when David can't get control of the situation with the bat, what does he do?
Here, use this. Just die!
And he stabs Dennis right in the chest.
Incredibly, Dennis is still alive.
This man was heroic. He had tremendous courage. Much more than that, he had stamina and determination. He had a lot of fight in him.
Dennis just wouldn't die. I mean, it was a very gruesome homicide scene. There was blood on the wall. There was blood on the ceiling. There was blood throughout the house.
Please, stop. You're gonna kill me. Give me my shorts.
Just don't move.
Amidst the horror, Dennis begs for one final wish.
Hurry up! Hurry up! Just hurry up and die!
Dennis asked if he could put his pants on, and they allowed that, but they couldn't allow him to live.
Delpha and David coil a rope around Dennis's neck, each take a side like it's a tug of war, and they strangle him to death.
This was a long, torturous, drawn-out murder. It took hours to kill Dennis.
They took his body and they dumped it out in a rural area of Oklahoma County out by a culvert. And it was in the middle of summer, and it was very hot, 100 degrees during that time period.
Days goes by. Delpha waits, picks up the phone, calls the police.
911, what's your emergency?
Hi, I'd like to report my husband missing.
Okay, ma'am, can you tell me exactly what happened?
He walked out. He was really drunk and angry, and I haven't seen him since.
Dennis's body is found 5 days after the attack. A clear case of murder. The first place the police investigate is the family home.
There's no way in this particular incident that a person could have cleaned the house up with any cleaning agents. The only way that they could have cleaned this house up if the house had been burned down.
Luminol reveals blood spatter everywhere.
They found hair and blood specimens like in a vacuum. They found dried blood throughout the house in different locations, and it was quite apparent that there'd been a major struggle.
And the cops figure it out like it's a puzzle, a kid's puzzle.
Delpha Joe tries to pin it on her accomplice.
Delpha said this guy went crazy. He wanted to commit some sort of satanic ritual by killing her husband. Mr. Woodward was saying that he was involved, but he was solicited to commit the crime by Delpha, and that Delpha actually physically helped in the crime.
They are both convicted of first-degree murder. David Woodward is sentenced to life without parole. In 1998, Delpha Joe Spinagle accepts a plea of life, no chance of parole.
She committed a murder with no value for human life. This was somebody she supposedly loved.
The three major motivators of murder are jealousy, revenge, and money. For Delpha, it was the almighty dollar.
I don't think we have a future together.
A broken promise taints all trust
That pledge was very important.
and turns a loyal heart.
She
she was planning to do something terrible.
Into a vengeful vixen.
She wanted ultimate pain and suffering.
China, 2011. 41-year-old Saisiar Liao has been unlucky in love.
Her husband was killed in a car accident, and she was incredibly grief-stricken after that accident because she'd been very much in love with her first husband.
The dumpling here is quite well known.
But she's finally met a man with whom she has a lot in common. 57-year-old Brian Mock.
He's a Chinese-born Australian businessman who does a lot of travel between China and Australia.
So have you been to Australia?
Many times. My daughter lives there.
With her daughter studying in Australia, Saisiar regularly travels between the two countries, a luxury she's worked hard to afford.
Can I have your number?
Okay.
She was involved in making certain Chinese foods.
Thank you, thank you. So we should keep in touch when you come to Australia.
She became very popular doing that, and that business grew, and she became very successful.
They agree to see each other whenever their jet-setting paths cross.
Thank you.
It's my favorite.
They became smitten right away.
Back in Australia, Brian has a family.
Oh, the boy's coming!
2 daughters and a beloved grandson. He and his wife recently split up.
Brian's separated from his wife, so they're not divorced, but they have broken up. He's on a business trip, he meets a new woman, and there's no problems for them starting a relationship.
After 40 years of marriage, Brian is dating again.
I missed you so much.
Me too.
For 3 years, he and Saisiar meet on both sides of the world.
Good to see you again.
He was an older man, and she believed that he was attracted to her, and that's what she wanted.
And Brian is honest about his situation back home.
You must know, I'm married. Please, wait. We are separated.
I won't be the other woman.
Saisiar wants their romance to be more. And she gets her hopes up when Brian asks her to be patient.
I don't want to go.
Be patient.
Being patient would mean someday you'll be my wife.
Brian believes his marriage is over.
Keep it as a symbol of our love.
And decides to take the next step.
You promise you get a divorce?
Brian did and said things that he wasn't really free to do. He gave her a wedding ring.
It's all Saisiar needs to start spreading the news to her relatives in China.
New man, new country.
Everyone is getting excited about the pending wedding.
So for Saisiar, that pledge was very important. It was something that couldn't be taken back.
When's the big day?
As soon as his divorce is final.
And she also sees him as her ticket to Australia, where her daughter is, a great opportunity for her to start a new life, a new family, and a new husband.
But there's one thing Brian isn't expecting.
It's good to be together.
Just behave yourself.
Wife Mai wants to give their marriage another go.
He'd been with her since he was 16, and she was the love of his life.
Deep down, Brian didn't want to leave his wife, and if the marriage could work with her, he wanted to try and make it work.
Where have you been? Why haven't I heard from you?
Can I come in? Can I explain?
On Saisiar's next visit, Brian breaks the news.
Everything that she was looking forward to, the dream of living in Australia, was lost.
What is it? Tell me.
I don't think we have a future together.
What? But you promised.
Things have changed.
What has changed?
She didn't take it well.
You marry me, I destroy your life.
You gotta have said it was over.
Saisiar isn't just devastated, she's humiliated.
She flew into a jealous rage. She went absolutely crazy.
I've gone back to my wife.
No!
And she said, plain and simple, that she would get revenge.
And she threatened Brian, you're gonna leave your wife or else.
Melbourne, Australia, 2015. Chinese businesswoman Saisiar Liao's hope of a new life and a new man in Australia is over.
She felt that it would be sort of happily ever after. When Brian told her that wasn't to be the case, she started plotting her revenge.
But Saisiar isn't willing to give up 61-year-old Brian Mock.
I'm not going home. You promised this will be my home.
Hey!
People caught in the grips of a severe jealousy and obsession know their life is horrible.
She became fixated on this idea that Brian had to marry her.
Spurned, then dismissed. Saisiar schemes to bring him down.
Saisiar made threats for months to Brian, and it was often over social media. And she would threaten to kill his wife.
She never actually threatened to kill Brian. All the threats were always directed at May.
Saisiar offers the man who rejected her one last chance.
The next day, Saisiar went to Brian's house and waited till his wife had gone to work.
Brian!
But she'd been to the house before and she knew the layout of the house. And she demanded to be allowed in to discuss what was going to happen.
What are you doing here?
I want to talk, that's all. Just let me in, okay?
It's the same Saisiar with a familiar refrain.
An ultimatum, divorce your wife or else.
Marry me, and all will be forgiven.
He got or else.
It's never going to happen.
You're pushing me too far.
The ex-lovers aren't home alone.
Now you've woken the boy. I think you should go.
Brian's 4-year-old grandson was in bed.
When 4-year-old Alistair woke up and started crying, Brian goes upstairs to comfort him.
While he was gone, Saisiar slipped something into his tea.
She spikes his tea with sedatives. Soon, Brian is comatose, helpless.
She wanted to really hurt Brian and to make him realize how much she was suffering from his decision not to marry her.
This was pure revenge for Brian's rejection.
Now it's time to meet the family, one by one.
She went upstairs and butchered a 4-year-old child.
She stabbed him repeatedly with the garden shears, left him in a pool of blood on his bed, just left him like he was asleep.
this vengeful lover hasn't inflicted enough pain yet.
Where's my grandson?
Brian was wondering where his grandson was. He kept calling out for his grandson, asking Saisia where he was.
Is he okay?
Shut up! I'll put this right into your eyes.
But she refused to tell him. She just kept promising that what was about to happen was going to be bad.
She kicks him, she punches him, she just vents her fury at him for not doing what he'd promised to do.
It had to have been pure hell for him. Brian was now being held by a monster and was completely helpless.
When will your wife be home?
She doesn't kill Brian. She's just killing time. Saisia waits 10 hours for his wife to come home.
Not only is she torturing him physically, kicking him in the face and chest, she's also telling him when his wife gets home, she's going to kill her. And there's nothing Brian could do about it.
At 5 p.m. on March 31st, 2015, Saisia strikes.
Saisia confronted May with the garden shears, which she'd used earlier to kill the 4-year-old boy.
She stabbed her 23 times. She's a maniac.
Brian's tied up and listening to his wife be killed.
I cut her throat. I kill everyone to make you suffer.
My grandson.
But this killer's work is not yet done. The mother of Brian's slain grandson is due any minute.
She was waiting to try and kill Brian's daughter as well, and that's why she didn't flee the scene.
He was going to have to sit there and listen to both his wife and his daughter be murdered while waiting, knowing that his time was coming.
But the neighbors had heard the commotion and called the police, and they intercepted her.
Miss, I need you to stand up. You're under arrest.
They found her sitting on the couch next to Brian, almost as if nothing had happened.
In 2015, Saisia Liao pleads guilty to murder and is jailed for life, with a minimum sentence of 32 years.
How could someone who was a mother herself, after murdering an innocent child, lay in wait for 10 hours so that she could kill another person?
The man who inspired her passion and her fury is left to suffer the rest of his life.
To make a man that you had wanted to marry sit through that and listen to his entire family be murdered, it's sadistic.
On the scale of hideous and grotesque and senseless murders, this is at the top.
Something goes bump in the night.
She hears a loud thump.
Louise?
She wakes up and she sees Louise at the bottom of the stairs.
A bizarre accident.
He had fallen down the stairs and stabbed himself in the eye.
Ends a 30-year union.
Louise!
They were shocked. They couldn't believe it.
San Pedro, California, 2004. Keeping a marriage strong over decades isn't easy.
He's passionate.
Yeah, but I've heard it all before.
As Nancy and Luis Larios know.
Nancy Larios was a respected school teacher, admired by her friends.
She taught French and Spanish.
Cheers. He was a big, loud, bombastic Spaniard.
After 30 years of marriage,
Wow, a thinker and a cook.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Perfect.
Nancy isn't hanging on Luis's every word.
They didn't have a lot of affection between them. When it came to her husband, would pick at him and criticize him in front of other people.
And it's the little things in a marriage that can make or break it.
Louise had this annoying habit of picking at his beard.
And that drove her crazy. And she wanted him to get rid of that beard, and that beard was too long, and she never liked it.
They may no longer be a romantic couple, but Nancy doesn't want to leave. But she's worried Luis may be planning to.
Still preening yourself?
Well, you like the new me?
Louise had lost 80 pounds within the last year. He had been working out a lot. She didn't seem to be happy about it.
What are you all dressed up for?
I'm gonna meet the guys for coffee.
You're going to a lot of effort.
A middle-aged man suddenly on a fitness campaign.
Just get off my back.
Nancy is suspicious,
Or what?
I mean it.
and she has every right to be.
He did have an affair. He had the affair for about 2 or 3 years.
I think Nancy viewed her husband as being the kind of person that could, in fact, have walked away from the relationship.
Luis has other secrets as well.
Luis had received approximately $90,000 from his father's inheritance that he may not have disclosed to his wife at the time he received it.
Nancy was very concerned about it.
What's this?
Hey, it's really happening. It's an inheritance.
That you were keeping secret from me.
No, it was gonna be a surprise.
And you expect me to believe that?
Yes, it's the truth.
Nancy no longer trusts Luis. She takes charge of the family fortunes.
So, how can I be of assistance?
I just think I need to get a handle on our affairs.
She's worried I got a secret stash.
No, I just want to plan for our future.
Nancy was much more interested in their financial future than Luis was.
She puts her husband's inheritance to good use.
And can we fit an ensuite there?
Sure, that's easy. And an extension here? Sure.
How much?
For everything? 40, 50,000?
And there are other financial matters Nancy is dealing with.
No Luis today.
Oh no, he couldn't make it.
They had arranged for 10 meetings with a financial planner.
So how can I help?
I thought it was time to review our life insurance. Oh well, Luis's policies.
Nancy went to 10, Luis went to 2 or 3.
Here we are here.
Sounds perfect. Thank you.
Nancy is full of plans for the future.
Bye.
Her future.
People do some very vile things.
San Pedro, California.
Just get off my back.
Or what?
Nancy and Luis Larios' 30-year marriage is loveless. But on April 22nd, 2004, Nancy tries to reignite the spark with a date night.
After dinner, they decided they were gonna watch movies.
To his surprise, she waits on Luis hand and foot.
I didn't expect a date night.
I know you want to see this movie.
Sure do.
But that doesn't stop his annoying habit.
Oh my God, will you stop that?
That was a big deal to her, and she just could not stand him picking at his beard.
And after a quiet night in, Nancy falls asleep.
Something woke her up. She hears a loud thump.
She looked, she saw him at the bottom of the stairs. And the scissors were in his eye. She has to call someone because her husband's dead at the bottom of these stairs.
Father, it's Nancy Larius.
Nancy summons an unlikely savior.
My husband's had a terrible fall.
She called a priest to administer last rites.
I think he needs the last rites.
Last rites are usually administered as someone is dying, not after the fact.
The advice was, call law enforcement, call the paramedics.
I heard a thud, and when I looked, he was lying at the bottom of the stairs.
It was unusual. She wasn't excited. She didn't appear to be traumatized.
Was he breathing?
I turned him over, and he'd fallen on the scissors.
She tells the first deputy on scene that her husband was carrying a chair, trash bags, and a pair of scissors, and he fell down the stairs. And he accidentally stabbed himself in the right eye with the scissors. Her story was very inconsistent with what we saw at the scene.
We noticed that there was adhesive on the body of Luis Larios.
Nancy tries to explain away the tape marks.
And her basic story was that Luis was enjoying some brandy, and he had this annoying habit of pulling his beard. And so she decided to strap his arms to the chair to prevent him from pulling his beard. But he caught her doing it, and they had a good laugh.
It's a bizarre explanation, and so are her actions after she finds her husband's body.
I couldn't bear seeing him like that.
She had scrubbed the floor, she had scrubbed her husband, she had removed his clothing and redressed him.
She wanted him cleaned up and presentable to see the priest.
And Nancy can't explain away the forensic evidence.
There was no explanation ever offered why there'd be a blood spatter upstairs in the bedroom.
If Luis died the way she said, there would have been no blood in the bedroom. For a teacher, she wasn't very smart.
Police piece together the real story.
Nancy Larios fed her husband a great deal of alcohol. He was also under the influence of temazepam.
After Luis became sleepy, Nancy made her move. She tied him up in a chair with duct tape. Who has duct tape in a bedroom? Nancy Larios does. Then she stabbed her husband in the eye with a 6-inch scissors blade.
I can't imagine what it was like for him to look up and see the scissors come towards his head, towards his eye, from his wife.
A lot of force went into it, a lot of anger.
His head was a bloody mess.
Nancy then rolled the chair with Luis strapped to it outside to the top of the landing and pushed him down the stairs.
It was just such a violent death for Louise.
If this wasn't a premeditated murder, then that was the biggest overreaction in history to a man stroking his beard and irritating his wife.
For staging an accident, this teacher gets an F.
Nancy left so much evidence of the crime scene, it could have been a CSI training room.
The police soon discover she has a lucrative motive.
She took receipt of a $425,000 life insurance policy 11 days prior to killing her husband. That was huge. In total, there was probably about $1 million worth of insurance and annuities.
She was tired of him. She didn't love him anymore. And she wanted him out of the picture, and she wanted a lot of money when he was gone.
In 2005, Nancy Larios is found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. Permanent detention for this rotten teacher.
There was no indication she was capable of this. None.
Murderers have two faces. The one they present to the friends, family, and the world, and the one behind closed doors. Luis met the one behind closed doors.
It's not just Nancy's greed that sets this crime apart. It's her utter lack of compassion for the man who shared her bed for 30 years.
Two people don't love each other and they just want to go their separate ways, then so be it. But why did she have to torture him and kill him in the manner that she did?
These deadly women had true darkness inside them. Delpha Jo Spinagle left her marriage in a ditch. Saisiar Liao destroyed the life of the man who betrayed her. And Nancy Larios turned resentment into bloodshed. All three found a thirst for blood that could only be satisfied by unspeakable acts